They say children are closer to the veil, that before they grow into the noise of the world, they still remember where they came from. In a small village tucked between the hills of Syria and Israel, a child was born with a strange red birthmark stretched across his forehead. To most, it might have seemed like nothing more than just a mark, a birthmark, but in his culture, it meant something deeper, a sign of how you died in your past life. He couldn't read, could barely speak, but by the time he turned 3, he began to talk about another name, another home, and another death. He told his parents he had been murdered, not in a dream, not in a story, but in a life before this one. He said he could take them there, that he knew the man who did it, and when they followed him across the villages, through the fields, and into the dirt, what they uncovered left everyone speechless. This isn't a ghost story. This is the story of a boy who carried death in his memory and used it to find the truth. Hey y'all, I'm BlaqueWitchYaya. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and today I have a cute little story for you guys about reincarnation through the eyes of a 3-year-old and the journey that him and his family went on, and the overall message of reincarnation and what we could take away from it. So today we are in the remote region of Golan Heights, nestled between Syria and Israel. A young boy who was born into a quiet Druze village. From the moment he arrived, something set him apart from everyone else. He had a bold red birthmark on his forehead, deep in color and oddly shaped. In many cultures, a birthmark is just a birthmark, a mark, but among the Druze, it meant something far more profound. The Druze are a secretive and ancient religious sect that believes deeply in reincarnation, the idea that the soul never dies but travels from one body to the next, carrying fragments of memory, trauma, and unfinished stories. In their traditions, a child born with a birthmark may be carrying an imprint of how they died in the past life. So when this little boy, barely 3 years old, began speaking of a violent death, no one took it lightly. He told his family he'd been killed by an axe struck directly in the head, the exact spot where his birthmark is. He claimed it wasn't just a dream or imagination, but a memory of another name, another village, another life. His parents were stunned but not dismissive of his words. In their culture, when a child speaks of such things, the elders listen. Like, they don't dismiss it and be like, child, you watching too much TV, stay out that phone, you don't know what you're talking about. No, they take it seriously. And so the boy's unsettling claims set off a journey, one guided by tradition, belief, and a haunting truth waiting to resurface from the grave. Also, I keep referring to the boy as the boy because we don't know his name, and during research they never revealed his name, so I keep saying the boy just to reference him, not being disrespectful. So as tradition allowed, the boy's family took his words seriously, so seriously that they invited the village elders to accompany them as he led them on a journey. They're like, listen, we need everybody to come, we need the elders to come because we sure they've seen this before, because it was common in their culture. So they traveled from their Druze village into a neighboring community he had never visited before. Again, he's 3, he only been on earth for 3 years. Yet he walked through it with like an unsettling familiarity, like retracing his steps almost from a dream or a memory. When the boy and the elders arrived in the village, he immediately began recalling vivid and precise details, not guesses, not just making up stuff. He stated his full name from his past life, matching the identity of a man who had mysteriously vanished from the area years earlier. Then he spoke about the circumstances of his death, describing a violent confrontation with someone he knew. He said there had been an argument, then a sudden attack, and he was struck fatally in the head with an axe. So now what shook everyone was not just the detail, but the conviction in his voice, like someone remembering a moment rather than just imagining it. As if you're trying to recall something from high school, you'd be like, and what was her name? What happened? Like, he's telling a story like that, like he's trying to recall something that he sees in his head because he actually experienced it. Then in a moment that defied all logic, The boy pointed to a random man in the village, someone he had never met in his 3 years of living, and named him as his killer. The man immediately denied any involvement, but the boy calmly stated that he could take them to where his former body had been hidden. And so, guided by a child, the group followed this 3-year-old, walked out into the fields until he stopped and pointed to a patch on the land. When they began digging, they uncovered human remains, the skull visibly fractured in the same exact spot where the boy has his birthmark now. And lying nearby in the dirt was the rusted axe that was used to kill him. The villagers were stunned, faced with the bones, the weapon, and the impossible truth of it all. The man confessed to the murder. The revelation sent shockwaves through the local community, not just because a murder had been solved, but because of how it came about and how it's been solved, especially that this little boy is a 3-year-old just learning how to speak but recalling something so tragic. For the Druze, this wasn't strange, it was confirmation. Their long-held belief that birthmarks reflect past life wounds and that children often carry echoes of their previous deaths had just played out before their eyes. So they're like, yeah, we've been saying this. The boy's memories were accepted as truth, and the story spread beyond village borders. As word got out, it caught international attention. For believers around the world, it became one of the most compelling cases of past life recall ever recorded. Of course, not everyone was convinced. Of course, we have skeptics that question everything that went on, whether the child had been coached or the villagers just made up a story to try to prove their beliefs right. But those who were there, who saw the boy's clarity, the buried bones, and the confession that followed, they had no doubts at all they were there. Whether you see it as a spiritual proof or a psychological mystery, this case shakes the foundation of what we believe about life and death. A child who could barely pronounce his own name knew his past life name, and remembered his murder, and he had exposed it. And what remains is a haunting question. If trauma can pass through lifetimes, what else might be waiting with it? Also, just random, you guys let me know down below if you have a birthmark, where is it, and what do you think it means? How is it shaped? Not to get all into y'all business, but if you have a birthmark, I have one on my forehead here. In many spiritual traditions, reincarnation isn't just a belief, it's a map, a way of understanding why we carry the fears we do, the marks on our bodies, and the heaviness in our hearts. For cultures like the Druze, reincarnation is as natural as breathing. It explains why a child might remember a face they never seen or feel fear towards something they never met. It teaches that life is not linear but layered, a cycle of lessons, wounds, and unfinished stories finding their way back to the surface. And maybe that's the most haunting part of this tale, that something so small, a birthmark, a memory, a name, can break through the veil between lives, that a soul, even in a child's body, might rise again to speak truth and seek justice. And whether you believe in it or not, there may be a lot of circumstances that you face in your life where it's from a past life, but you may not know why. You may be like, why? I always feel like when we have deja vu and we can't put our finger on it, it's something where it's familiar to us, but our past version of us, like we've been here before, we had this moment before, but it was either in our past life or us in a different universe, all aligning. I believe in a multiverse, so in my head I feel like it's us just in a different universe aligning at that moment. So it feels like deja vu because it felt like it happened before, but it's happening multiple times, so it feels familiar just because of the repetition. But that's my thought behind it. This story also reminds us that not everything dies when the body does. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it comes back knowing exactly where to dig. And you guys know, a few years ago, I got a past life reading where I was able to see and experience some of my past lives with Niyoshi. I'll link that video down below. It is very eye-opening. It's not scary, but it's like, dang, it helps you make sense of things that's going on currently if you believe in it, if you're open to it. Of course, you're not going to receive any type of messages or images or signs if you're like closed off, don't believe it. For me, if you're open to the thought of reincarnation and want to understand your past life and what guided you here, I feel like you can receive a lot of messages. But if you're skeptical of it, I always say messages don't come to skeptics, because it's like spirit's not going to try to prove something to you. You have to be open. Like, you can't receive anything with your hands like this. You have to be open and able to receive the messages and clarity when you feel ready to. So you guys let me know what you think about reincarnation down below. Do you believe believe in it? Or do you feel like we only got one life? Do not miss your chance to go. Do you just feel like this is it? This is all? This is the story? Or do you feel like it's always a continuation with just like a different character carrying on the same lessons? But let me know your thoughts down below on this story. Also, if you have any children or encountered a child that seemed wise beyond their years that you received a message from, did you experience a child being closer to the veil, closer to spirit, that said things that they should not have known before, but it was a message that you needed? Let's talk down below. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. And like I always say, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Until next time, you guys, Ashe, baby.